Hello YouTube, I am the StarChild and welcome to Tentai Kensoku. We're continuing our journey through the Sonic Cinematic Solar System with Sonic 2 coming up. But before we get there, I just wanted to mention that I'll be changing the way I do reviews slightly. It'll mainly just be me cutting down my recap of the movie to a shorter summary. I'm hoping this makes it easier for me to edit in the future and to avoid possible copyright issues later down the line. We have been able to fly under the radar so far, knock on wood, but the system is very fickle and severely unrefined and could strike at any moment. I'm also hoping this will give me more time and room in the video to talk about the nostalgic aspects and like different scenes and themes of the stuff I'll be covering, especially when it comes to like TV series where I obviously can't recap the entire thing. Anyway, with that housekeeping stuff out of the way, it looks like we've arrived. After the success of the first movie, this sequel was announced only a couple of months later in May. I mentioned in my review of the first movie that it didn't feel much like a Sonic movie to me, but this one is where it really starts to like shift gears. Sonic 2 is where we start adapting themes and events from the games. This one in particular mainly focuses on Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Quick side note, that game was so large that it was broken down into two separate games initially, Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles, so you might find any of those three things if you're looking to play it. Sonic 3 and Knuckles is the definitive full version though. Anyway, Jim Carrey was actually the one to bring up a sequel, saying that he had so much fun doing the first one and he wanted to expand the potential of Dr. Eggman in the series. Director Jeff Fowler, as well as various other members of the cast and crew, said that they wanted to do something more similar to the games that incorporated more elements from there. Everyone was locked in at this point, and it really shows in this movie because not only is it better than the first one, but it improves on so many things. Fun fact, Sonic 1 was the last movie I saw in theaters before COVID lockdowns, and this one was the first movie I saw afterwards. The movie dropped on April 8th, 2022, which was also my 30th birthday, and yes, I spent it watching Sonic 2. The movie begins with Eggman being saved from the mushroom planet by Knuckles the Echidna, who comes through a warp ring after following a power surge from the quill Eggman had. Also, who the fuck are these people that ran out of the ring right before Knuckles? Like, are they human? Not that it actually matters because we never see them again. Eggman realizes Knuckles is also looking for Sonic, and he decides to form an alliance with him. We then see Sonic trying to prove that he's a hero to both himself and Longclaw, but he's absolutely terrible at it. Back in Green Hills, Tom and Maddie leave to go to Rachel's wedding to this dude named Randall in Hawaii, which, unbeknownst to Rachel at the time, ends up being completely fake and a cover for a gun sting operation. This leaves Sonic home alone, during which Eggman makes his vengeful return in a new partnership with Knuckles. Knuckles is actually on a mission for the Master Emerald, which piques Eggman's interest in this ultimate power, and he starts to plot against Knuckles in order to get it. Sonic then meets Miles Tails Prower and teams up with him in a fight against Knuckles and Eggman as a race for the Master Emerald, something Sonic initially thinks is just a bedtime story. The map Longclaw left him activates and informs the duo of Sonic's true destiny, to protect the Master Emerald. This leads them in a race across the planet to find it before Eggman and Knuckles can. Knuckles and Sonic clash multiple times along the way, eventually realizing that the two of them were both affected by the same event, the Echidna tribe attacking Longclaw and Sonic, shown at the beginning of the first movie. Eggman then betrays Knuckles, leading him to team up with Sonic and Tails to stop the Mad Doctor. Despite their best efforts, Eggman absorbs the power of the Master Emerald and uses it to create a Death Egg robot, nearly destroying the town of Green Hills with world domination at his fingertips. Sonic is injured in the scuffle, and though Knuckles manages to punch the emerald out of Eggman with the help of Tails, Sonic, Tom, and Maddie embrace each other and accept their fate as Eggman's mech attempts to crush them. Just then, the emerald grants Sonic its power. He then becomes Super Sonic and defeats Eggman, saving the world and gaining a team, as well as a sense of belonging in his new family. So first I want to talk about the scenes I liked. The fishing trip scene, I kind of forgot about it until I rewatched the movie, but it's really good at establishing like this progression in Sonic and Tom in particular's relationship. Right before this, Sonic reflects on his relationship with Longclaw and says that he wants to make her proud. This is in direct contrast with a declaration to Tom in this scene that he doesn't consider him a father figure at this point, just a friend when Tom tries to give him advice. Tom takes it in stride and reminds Sonic that he's still a child, and then imparts some wisdom that his own father gave to him onto Sonic. This is great writing in my opinion because he doesn't shut Sonic down or put him in his place here. He just subtly indicates that he and Maddie see Sonic as their child, a feeling which is eventually reciprocated at the end of the movie with Sonic actually calling Tom dad. The scene with Sonic and Tails bonding and finding comfort in each other for being different and struggling to find a place to belong, I think was also well done. I'm going to talk about characterizations later, but one thing I will praise these movies on is that they managed to give Sonic flaws and a struggle without making him completely unbearable. Sonic Prime was criticized heavily for failing to do this. Like, they tried to give him this flaw of not thinking at all before he acts, and it just made him annoying and frustrating to watch. Sonic in the games isn't really a character that needs to be comforted or to find himself. Like, he's good. He's the guy that legit nobody has to worry about. He's so put together that he's the one everybody ends up looking up to or finding inspiration in. Movie Sonic manages to be encouraging while still having things to work out on his own, which I feel like makes him likable for the average moviegoer. Then there's a scene where Eggman and Knuckles catch up to Sonic and Tails after they find the compass that'll lead them to the Emerald. In this scene, we see Knuckles kind of being chipped away at, in a sense. After realizing that they both lost everything that day for the same reason, he begins to see Sonic in a new light. Even with Tails' ill-timed stun attack and thinking Sonic deceived him, the seed was already planted in his head. Knuckles is not a bad person. He believes in loyalty, and even while thinking that Sonic was lying to distract him, he realizes that Sonic is a loyal person himself who values his friends and comrades. Because Sonic went to an injured Tails instead of trying to get the compass back from Eggman. Eggman mocks him for this, but Knuckles is starting to see that his initial mistrust of the Doctor was probably right. I think it's a really good way to show Knuckles' genuine character despite the actions he was taking up until this point in the movie. This is emphasized later in the scene where both he and Sonic end up saving each other from drowning and have to talk it out and realize they both have the same goal. There are even some decent comedy moments in this movie, like during Rachel's breakdown after finding out that her wedding was a sham. She accuses JoJo, her own daughter, of being an agent, and her face for some reason just made me laugh out loud, like actually laugh out loud. She's just so done with her mom in this. Criticism time. This movie isn't perfect by any means, but we're definitely getting there. It feels like a Sonic movie. Definitely feels more like a Sonic movie than the last one did. We finally have elements from the games, and though extremely loose, a story adaptation from a game. Due to budget constraints, I don't think they could have included Angel Island. Like, maybe they did, maybe they couldn't work it in there, I don't know. But I personally feel like it could have been worked in if they chose to do it. Like, the Emerald Compass could have just led them to the island in the sky instead of a shrine under the ocean. This actually would have made more sense to me since the Owl tribe hid it in the first place from the echidnas and they can fly, meaning that it would always be out of the enemy's reach. And one big criticism that the first two movies had is that there are just way too many human scenes. That's always a criticism with movies like this. You know, fans came to see Sonic, not some random human characters. So scenes focusing on them tend to feel drawn out and unnecessary. The entire wedding scene, really. The first part served the purpose of introducing Gunn, but the aftermath scene in particular is just super long and basically a scene where Maddie and Rachel raise hell for like 15 minutes or something. I don't know. It's probably not actually that long, it just feels like it. Maddie is at least trying to save Tom and Sonic from the Gunn agent, but Rachel's out for revenge, and it doesn't really even matter in the first place because she ends up marrying Randall for real. I don't know. It just felt pointless after all that. And I know these movies are for kids, and I am by far not a child, but like the fart jokes and flossing made it into this one. You know, it's kind of tired at this point, but it's always in a kid's movie. The dance scene uses Uptown Funk, which feels like it came out decades ago at this point, and is still kind of old to be used in a movie that came out barely 3 years ago. That might be a nitpick. Actually, I just looked it up while I was writing this, and the song came out in freaking 2014. So there is another one for the existential crisis. You're welcome. I also want to introduce something here called Sins of the Father, which is like a movie adaptation trope where movies try to stick more to the source material later on, but then, you know, they're already confined to decisions made in previous films. Gunn is probably the biggest one of them at this point. I mentioned in the last movie how like the military was basically Gunn. but now Gun exists and is name dropped. Apparently they were created because of the events of the first movie. However, the issue arises more so in the third one. Gun in the games always existed. It's basically just a specialized military unit. They play a huge part in what happened 50 years ago, but we'll get there when we talk about Shadow in the movie 3 review. It's even more confusing though, because they drop Shadow at the end, like in the after credit scene. So it kind of made it sound like he wasn't on a gun base, but like, where else would he be? I don't know. You could just say they were lying to cover up the history of it, but I don't know, whatever. Now I want to go ahead and start talking about characterizations, since we have more characters to go off of. Firstly, I'll get Tails out of the way, because even though he's not like a one-to-one to his game counterpart, he's pretty damn close, probably the closest out of anybody. He even has the same voice actress in Colleen O'Shaughnessy. The biggest difference is that he starts out being more of a Sonic fanboy. Game-wise, he's not even really a sidekick. Like, he's more of a partner or a protege to Sonic. Sonic originally met Tails when he was saving him from some bullies who were harassing him about his extra tail, but in the movie he just kind of stalks Sonic. Tails still looks up to Sonic, and he wants to grow as a person because of him. Sonic inspired him to be braver and to take action, which, that's intact from the games, and along with his knack for tech and engineering. So he, like I said, is pretty much the same. Knuckles. Okay, Knuckles is a weird one because, depending on when you came into the fandom, you either think he's this stoic, isolated, fish out of water type of dude, or an absolute dumbass. He absolutely suffered from the mischaracterizations and flanderizations of, it started in the mid-2000s for him, even in Sonic X. Knuckles, though he was tricked by Eggman a few times in the games, was never stupid. He was born on Angel Island, which I mentioned before is an island that floats in the sky due to the power of the Master Emerald. Knuckles was not only isolated up there, but he was born alone. He had no idea about his own culture, let alone the world below. A lot of the stuff he learned about his own people were just from exploring the ruins left behind on Angel Island. All he really knew was that he was destined to protect the Master Emerald, which, in the movies it's the same, but it's separate from the Chaos Emeralds in the games, and it functions to it's the controller, basically. It either subdues or increases the power depending on what's needed. So he became the guardian of the Emerald and the island itself. So when Eggman showed up all those years ago playing the victim and painting Sonic as the bad guy, Knuckles, who had no basis for any of this, he had no reason to believe that this random old man was lying to him. And he was originally supposed to be Sonic's rival. This role is now taken by Shadow, but they didn't really get along in the beginning because of that. So, when Eggman pulled the same shit in Sonic Adventure, Knuckles knew to be wary of him, but, he just really did not like Sonic, so he fell for it again. And then in Sonic Advance 2, okay, so I know I'm not really doing him any favors right now, but his gullibleness really just stems from his lack of social skills and naivety, and the fact that, even though he's quiet and stoic and likes being left alone, he still tends to see the best in people. And it's honestly, it's less about Knuckles' intelligence and more just the fact that Eggman is one cunning bastard, because he has duped pretty much everybody, even Sonic and Tails, in this entire series, whether they expected it from him or not. Movie-wise, he comes off as sort of odd, but it does seem to be a little more fish out of water than general stupidity. Knuckles in this movie grew up alone and seemingly isolated from everybody else as well, because Tails is also an off-planet orphan, but he seems just way more socialized than Knuckles. In the movie universe, Knuckles actually had a family, and he was trained as a warrior, so he has that mindset at first about everything. He probably would have fit in just fine if his family was still, around. Personality-wise, Game Knuckles is very confident in his abilities as a fighter and the Guardian, but his pride is more internal and subdued. He rarely brags, unless he's talking shit with Sonic or Rouge, to be completely honest, but he is way more of a show-don't-tell character. He's nowhere near as rude as we see him in the movies. He's extremely hot-headed though, so when he's provoked or when somebody gets under his skin or pushes his buttons, he tends to just blow up and run straight into a fight. It's basically the same with this Knuckles, except for a different reason. and Sonic. So I kind of covered Sonic's characterization in the last video. Honestly, movie Sonic and game Sonic are basically two different people. I don't know if other people feel that way, but I definitely do. Movie Sonic is a young, hyperactive kid with this superhero fantasy. He kind of grows into it as the trilogy progresses, but he's very desperate to prove himself in a way. He has that signature Sonic snark and the quick tongue, but that's about it. It's really where the similarities stop, in my opinion. One huge thing I noticed in American media is that the fast characters are often characterized as hyperactive and have ADHD personalities, but Game Sonic isn't like that at all. He's actually pretty low energy, believe it or not. Sure, he's always on the move, he's always running around, but that's more goes along with his carefree drifter type of attitude. He goes where the wind takes him. A lot of his hobbies outside of running are actually pretty stationary. He plays guitar, which we've seen in Chow Tales, and that might be a reference to before he came to the US. The pitch was that he was part of a band. He used to moonlight as a DJ. There is artwork of that from the early 2000s. He's a pretty avid reader. He mentions reading even up until Sonic Frontiers. He says after that whole adventure, he wouldn't mind sitting down with a good book and a cup of coffee. And he sleeps a lot, which is probably due to the fact that he expends so much energy when he runs as fast as he does, but still. Game Sonic is laid back, a little hot-headed at times, but he's always just been this embodiment of a free spirit and is just effortlessly cool. I talked about it before in my Why I Like Sonic video, but the cool thing about Sonic and that's different about him is that he is not a character that strives to be a hero. He literally just does whatever he wants. He doesn't care what people think of him. He doesn't want to make an impression. He just tends to lean towards the side of good, and that is pure coincidence most of the time, because there are times in the games where he just continued to do whatever he wanted to and ended up on the bad side of things. He just does not care about people's perceptions, and it does not stop him from doing what he personally feels is right. Lastly, I'll talk about Dr. Ivo Robotnik. So Eggman is not this goofy in the games. He's never worked for Gun either, as far as I know. I know movie Eggman started out like that. We never actually get a reason for why Eggman's evil in the games, not that you really need one, though I would like to explore that one day, since it seems like the other Robotniks that we know of were genuinely good people, even if they were misguided, and there are some tragic circumstances surrounding that family, but we'll talk about that in the third movie. As mentioned in my review for the first one, Jim Carrey is very Jim Carrey in these movies, but it works for what they've done here. Game Eggman is cunning, manipulative, dangerous, narcissistic, and straight up evil. And I think that is lost on a lot of people these days. But you have to remember that this man has pulled a gun on the cast of this series multiple times across the multimedia franchise. He will only go as far as to begrudgingly work with Sonic to save the world because it means that he won't be able to rule it otherwise. Movie Eggman is just kind of more of a narcissist, and he thinks he's smarter than everyone else, and that eventually evolves into megalomania. That being said, both of them are still very dangerous and will go to any lengths to get the job done. Do not forget in that first movie, he just started shooting Tom and Sonic in Tom's own house. He did not care. In the games, Sonic and Eggman also have this timeless song and dance that represents freedom versus oppression, nature versus industrialization. Movie Eggman and Sonic are just kind of this generic hero versus villain thing. They don't really seem to have a theme in their relationship. And this is probably due to budget constraints, but I can't see Game Eggman limiting himself to the use of little drones that fly around. He is 100% more of a guy who will build entire armies of autonomous battle droids, and we've seen that in games. Overall, I really like the changes they made to this, and it's really a whole lot more of a Sonic movie than the last one. I really like when artists respect the source material and still manage to make something brand new out of it and write new stories. Something we all have to understand is that the movies are allowed to be different. They're allowed to have creative freedom, because what's the point if you're just gonna make the movie version of Sonic 3 or whatever? And they are still separate from the mainline canon. It's just nice, in my opinion, to see things being referenced and reworked to experience in new ways. This movie is very fun to watch. That being said, for some reason, maybe it's because the third one's out and it's objectively the best one out of all of them, it feels like this one is the forgotten middle child to me, even though it made more than Sonic 1. I don't know. That could just be me. And I think that's where we're going to leave it. So, let me know what you think of this down in the comments. What did you think about this movie? Did you like it? Did you like my review or whatever? Um, if you like the video, let the algorithm know by hitting that thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button if you want to come on this journey with us. I talk about nostalgic properties, past, present, and potentially the future as well. And remember, embrace your inner child, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!